Hi everyone, and we are so excited to welcome Janice Chan tonight. Janice is a board certified behavior analyst and former moderate to severe special ed teacher. She's a part time lecturer in the Department of Special Education at San Diego State University, teaching and supervising aspiring special ed teachers. She also works in autism research, developing autism interventions that can be used in schools. Janice serves as the special needs ministry deacon at Reservoir Church here in Escondido, where she coordinates a monthly respite program called Buddy Break for families affected by disability. All right. Thank you so much, Janice. We're so excited you're here.
Thank you for having me. I really love the name "Hope on a on the Hard Road" because I think it's really representative of a lot of the stories I've heard, and I'm sure, for the parents that are attending here live, as well as the parents that are listening to the recording, it's been a hard road for you, and the pandemic has made it an even harder road. And so I really felt compelled to just share some strategies and supports for this transition period that we're all in right now, and just reflecting on my experiences as a special education teacher who now helps special education teachers do their jobs more effectively, and consults with them. What could be helpful for them to know about, as they're working on getting their students back in the schools. I know everybody's in a different place. Every school district here in San Diego is different. I don't know for the people attending or watching this what school districts are necessarily represented, but everybody has a different place that they're in. Some people are, all the way in person. Some people are now on a hybrid situation. And so I'm hoping, though, that the content and the strategies and supports that I share with you tonight will be helpful no matter what kinds of transitions your family is approaching, whether it be here with these COVID related transitions, or even, just normal back to school in August and September. When that comes back around again, we're now dealing with a whole group of students who spent the majority of the school year not in school. And so it's going to be a different school year that is coming ahead. So all that to say, I hope that this not only is this going to be like a timely presentation, but that it'll be useful no matter what transitions you are facing as a family. So I'm happy for this to be as conversational as you would like, since this is a little bit of a smaller group this evening. But I do have a couple of interactive opportunities for you to participate in the conversation today. So I've set up what's called a word cloud, where it allows you to share your response to a specific question. And if more people respond to that question with the same word, that word grows larger and larger. So I would, if you could just, and the way that you would respond to this is by texting Janice Chan 776 to 37607. And the question I have for you to respond to is, describe how the last year has been for your child, no matter how old your child is or children. Tired. So similar feelings, right? Anxious. I'll give it a couple more minutes. Frustrated. Sad. Ooh, got a few there. Maybe extra time. That might be a two one phrase, but bored. Thankful. It's a good positive word to describe the last year. overwhelmed, challenges. Done. I like that one. You know, I think as adults, a lot of us would use these words to describe the last year too, right? It's not just how it is for the children that are in our lives, but also for us adults as well. And so hopefully this presentation can kind of change that a little bit. So, one thing I just want to start with and preface this presentation with the idea that preparing for transition back to school involves two-way communication and initiation between home and school. Um, I really am a firm believer that, yeah, the school is responsible for doing a lot of things um, for families that are affected by disability, but I don't want that to take away from what you are allowed to do or what you feel you have a place to do. I want all parents who are attending this or all caregivers who are attending this webinar tonight just to know that and feel empowered that there are benefits to your proactivity, that communicating things to the school or asking for certain things doesn't need to just come one way from the school to the home, but that you are allowed to and you should exercise the right to communicate what is going on and ask for things that you need from the school system as well. And that goes for these transitions as well. It's not just about how the school reaches out to you as a family, it's also about you reaching the school and communicating your needs as well. Okay, so what I am going to actually go through is what's called a Padlet, and I'm not sure if everybody here is familiar with Padlets, but they're these I've seen them a lot more during COVID, but it's a nice way to kind of compile a lot of different resources together into one single website. So I'm going to put that in the chat just so everybody has access to it, and I'll be sharing like how to use a lot of these different resources, or I've kind of expanded on some of these resources and supports that are available here on this Padlet in this presentation. So I would definitely recommend, if you are looking into transitioning your child into any supports, and whether they have autism or not, I think a lot of these strategies are still effective and valuable, but I would highly recommend looking into how you can use some of these when it comes to transitioning back to school. So with that being said, there's kind of two parts I'm going to be sharing about in this presentation. The first section's about how to prepare your child for the transition back to school, and then the second portion is how to prepare the teacher, your child's teacher, for the transition back to school. Okay, so why is it important to transition your child or back to school? Because transitions are hard. I'm sure a lot of you know that from your experiences, right? That transitions are difficult. This can be like day-to-day transitions from one activity to the next. This can be big life transitions like moving across the country. This can be, medium transitions like transitioning to not being at school when you're used to being at school, or going back to school when you're used to being at home. So we really want to be able to come alongside our students, our children, and support them in these difficult circumstances. And I think this is particularly important right now because of the fact that we've been in survival mode for the last year, right? Whether we want to admit it or or not, we've been in survival mode, which means that our lives for the past year and our children's lives for the past year have been unpredictable, no matter how predictable we tried to make it for them, right? As much structure as we tried to put into the day. And also that we've been forced to be reactionary, to not be able to be proactive because we don't know how to prepare, for what's to come, because we don't know what's to come. And so that makes it really difficult to parent a child with a disability. So here are some strategies I am hoping that would be helpful for you as you prepare your child for these types of transitions. One is to think about providing a countdown for when those transitions are expected to occur. One way of doing that is a calendar. So there are apps that do like countdown apps or countdowns, which you can see here. Another idea is to just do a calendar and have, the day that they return to school marked on the calendar and circled, and the child will just mark off as you go. Um, and so these are just some ideas. I'm sure there are other ways that you can also do some sort of a countdown. But the idea is to make it visual. And I think that's going to be a predominant theme throughout my presentation tonight is I am a really big proponent of doing everything visually. We know that a lot of children with disabilities learn better using visual supports rather than just verbal supports. And so any way that you can support your child in understanding things using a visual is likely to be more effective than using words alone. And so that will be something you see throughout. A lot of ways that a lot of strategies I'm going to be showing you involve using some sort of visual representation. Another thing to make sure you do, not only to provide an idea of when this transition may be occurring, but also to really be descriptive about the way you expect the child to act or behave in when this new transition occurs. And one way you can do that is a strategy called social narratives. You may have heard this referred to as social stories. That is one way that you can do a social narrative. For those of you who haven't heard of a social story, I don't have one on this particular slide, but basically it's a story that you write about a particular situation, and it describes what the child is to expect or what the child should expect during that particular situation. So let's take it away from COVID for a minute. And let's say you're about to take a family vacation. You're going to have your child ride an airplane for the first time. You could write a story about what it's like to go check in at the counter, to go through security. What feelings may your child have? What people might they encounter? What are they expected to do? Take off their shoes, put their bag on the conveyor belt so that it can go through the security. All of that, you're describing all of the expected behaviors for this trip to the airplane, for this trip on the airplane. So same thing goes for any sort of social situation you might encounter. For example, as the special needs deacon at my church, I write ones for children who are going to be sitting in to our church service. So, describing what is expected of me, what am I going to be doing during that time, things like that. So that is a social story. There's other types of social narratives, like this example with the fireman here is the idea is to describe the behaviors more explicitly about what you expect the child to do, but they're bringing in a preferred character for this particular child, this fireman Steve, so that they're saying, like, basically, if fireman Steve, this character that I really like, is telling me to do these things and does these bedtime routines like then I want to do it too because Fireman Steve is doing it. So fill in the blank with any preferred character there. But that is another idea of how you can bring in social narratives. And then this is one specifically that I found on that Padlet. I just took a screenshot of describing the social distancing markers at the school and showing what they might look like, showing when you might encounter them, like how to keep my desk in that particular space or how to stand 6 feet apart from other kids. So these are ways that you might describe how that transition might occur. So, and this can apply to many other things as well, like what is the new schedule that I'm going to be having? What are some new rules I need to follow? In what spaces am I required to wear a face shield or a mask? And in what spaces am I allowed to take it off? Those kinds of things can all be described in a social narrative or a social story. Another idea is to practice the new routines and schedules that that the child might encounter. So this can go so far as, and one of the strategies recommended in the Padlet is to actually like bring the child to the place where they're going to be transitioning. So let's say it's school because you're transitioning back to being in school in person. Bringing the child to the school, walking them to their classroom so that they understand and remember how to walk to that particular classroom, how to stay in line. All of those things can be practiced ahead of time, as well as those new schedules. So practicing waking up on time for school, practicing going to bed early enough so that you can wake up for school, those kinds of things. So thinking about what routines your child needs to be reminded about, like how to get ready for school, how to ride on the school bus, how to greet other people, all of those are different new routines or new old routines maybe that your child might need reminders about. Another idea is to begin to slowly increase your expectations. And in the world of ABA, we call this shaping. And shaping is thinking about slowly increasing your expectations for a particular behavior that you're expecting out of a child. Or really, it can be out of anybody, right? Like you can shape your husband to do a specific thing for you. So thinking about shaping, expectations for wearing a mask. I really liked this list of steps that came from Rutgers Medical School about how you can begin to teach your child to become a little bit more used to being, seeing masks or even wearing a mask. And I know that some of you have exceptions, medical exceptions to wearing a mask. So if this doesn't apply, don't take it as like I'm forcing you to put a mask on your child or something. It's just a big issue that a lot of parents end up facing. And so I thought that this was a nice strategy to teach that. So, you're beginning by just simply putting the mask in different places in the house, just so the child is used to seeing it. And maybe then moving into having family members wear their masks at home so that the child's used to interacting with people with masks on. Maybe even putting masks on favorite stuffed animals or favorite dolls. Beginning to touch the mask, hold the mask, hold it for a specific amount of time, increase the amount of time that the child is holding the mask, and so on and so forth. So this is just an idea. A similar strategy can be used for other things as well that you want to shape, like bedtime or something like that too. Okay, and then the last strategy for children is to begin pairing any positive behaviors with some sort of a reward system. And I know that a lot of times families and even teachers feel like reward system means I need to buy things for my child. It has to be something tangible. And I really want you to know that it doesn't necessarily mean you need to go break the bank and buy all these different toys for your children. Reward systems can be, privileges that they have in the house or around the house, or getting to hang out with a specific friend, or having movie night as a family where you just sit and watch something that you already have. So yeah, so think outside of just always buying things for your child. I don't want you to think that that's what you have to do. But the idea behind this is to make sure that children know when they're doing something good, right? And a lot of times children with disabilities, they tend to struggle with knowing when they're doing positive things, and so we want to recognize those. And so one way we can do that is using a token system like pictured here. So there's two different examples. One is very COVID specific about wearing a mask, and even here we can see that the reward here is that they get a break from wearing their mask. And maybe that's, I wear a mask and I get rewarded 10 times. I get like 10 stars or something like that in these boxes. And then I get to take a break from wearing my mask. Or it could be that you're rewarding or you're pairing other positive behaviors with a reward system like this. And then this is a more general one of where the parent is putting stickers in the boxes for these specific different behaviors, like cleaning up your toys, asking for things using nice words, and playing with the dog with gentle hands. And in this case, they get to play Angry Birds for 10 minutes. So, yeah, the important thing here is to make sure that you are recognizing the child using more tangible ways than verbal recognition, for the positive things that they're doing when they're doing the things that you want them to do. Okay, so finally, some ideas about preparing your child's teacher for the transition back to school. Um, this is equally important as it is to prepare the child, but I think a lot of times we focus so much on changing the child, and we don't think about other things in the environment that we can be changing, um, in order to support that child. And so one way of supporting that child without putting all these interventions and strategies and supports on the child is to communicate to the child's teacher about what the child needs, or what kinds of things have changed since the child, since the teacher has last seen the child, or maybe it's even a new teacher. And so what I want to share is this student snapshot that comes from the Padlet that I shared earlier. I hope this is visible for everybody. It's a little bit small, but again, this is available on the Padlet, which we can share the link to within the notes of the YouTube link too. But this is just a general idea of some things that might be helpful to communicate to your child's teacher. So, what are some of the strengths, supports, and services that the child has? What are some strengths? What are some interests? What are the preferred or the reinforcers? Um, how does the child best communicate? What are some teaching strategies that the child is responsive to? And so on and so forth. Even talking about specific behaviors, what triggers those behaviors, and some strategies that work well. To have one of these documents would be a complete game changer for a teacher to have all that information in one snapshot. that is prepared and ready to go, that will allow the teacher to have so much valuable information about how to help your child more specifically. And, if a form like that isn't accessible to you, even just writing a little note to the teacher to say something like, this is how the pandemic has been for our child. This is what they've been doing. This is what we've how we've been responding. That is really important information to share with the child's teacher. But most importantly, I would say, more important than all of those things is actually, I think, is the child's preferences, because learning about the child's preferences helps the teacher to be able to adjust teaching, right? Like, I can now incorporate the things that the child likes into the teaching opportunities if I know what their preferences are. And I also now know what kinds of rewards and reinforcers are effective for that particular child. So, above all else, I would say to share those things, share the child's preferences. So yeah, that is pretty much it. In conclusion, I just want to reiterate, that the importance that you have in your child's education, and the right that you have to initiate communication with school providers. And not only is it important to prepare the child and to use these strategies that we know are effective for children, but also to communicate your child's needs to your child's teacher, especially with regards to these upcoming school transitions.